Now, circling back to our top story, a powerful 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck off the southern Philippines this morning, killing at least 15 people and damaging buildings and infrastructure. Now, the quake also triggered tsunami warnings across the Philippines and parts of Indonesia and Malaysia. Now, for more, we're joined by Lai Voon Hui. She's Professor, Asia School of the Environment at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Professor, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. First up, how unusual is a magnitude 7.8 earthquake in the Philippines? And what's most important in the next 24 to 48 hours?
Thank you. So for this particular earthquake, it is happening at a very active part of the plate boundary system in Philippines. So it is within expectation. So this is the earthquake that we think the main culprit is the Cotabato Trench, where the Sunda plate, which is the plate at Southeast Asia, is subducting or going under the Philippine plate. And these earthquakes in this region has in the past generated large magnitude earthquakes, including magnitude 8.0 in the 1910s. And then with the plate boundary systems, we are also familiar that it goes up to the Philippines, Luzon Island, where a magnitude 7.6 earthquake happened in 1990. In the next 24 to 48 hours, we should expect aftershocks happening, at least one order of magnitude lower than what we have looked at. So this particular earthquake is at magnitude 7.8, so we're expecting up to magnitude 6.8, and we have seen a few earthquakes of magnitude 6.5, 6.0 that has happened in the region.
You mentioned about, it's sitting on this, tectonic plate. What does it actually tell us about the forces at work beneath this particular region then?
So what these two plates does is you have a plate that is being forced to go under the other plate, but then sometimes these plates get locked and all the stress and strain are being built up over decades and times. And once the friction is exceeded what the plates could hold, it would rebound, and that's what causes the earthquake and sending all these seismic waves across the region.
Speaking of waves, why did this quake then generate tsunami warnings so quickly?
So there are sensors around the area, and for subduction zone system earthquakes, we usually expect tsunami waves, as these waves can break the surface of the plate, so that allows you to interact with the seafloor and displace the seawater, and therefore we expect for a magnitude 7.8, we often expect tsunami waves as well.
Well, speaking of these waves, we're seeing or registering waves about a meter or so. Is that the worst, or should people still be worried?
So we should keep an eye out and listen to the local authorities, as they have the most up-to-date measurements of the tsunami waves in the ocean. But in case of a strong earthquakes happen, or in case there are cascading hazards like submarine landslide, we might expect more stronger tsunami waves, but I would defer to the local authorities and wait for the alert.
Okay, Professor, the quake, we understand, had a depth of 10 kilometers. How does a depth actually affect the intensity and tsunami generating potential?
So depth is currently expected to measured at 10 kilometers. For very shallow depth earthquakes, we can imagine that the seismic waves are also closer to the city area, and therefore generates larger shaking. For a very shallow earthquake as well, the earthquakes can rupture to the surface, so it can break through the seafloor and allow displacement of water, which is the origin of tsunami waves.
The aftershocks you mentioned earlier, that we're seeing, is this typical, or are there fears about future major seismic activity happening then?
So a magnitude 7.8 is a big earthquake. We are expecting aftershocks for up to in the range of magnitude 6 active in the days, weeks, or years to come. But there's also a probability, typically 1 in 20 times, that we have seen around the world, that it might be a foreshock. So it is important for people to be alert and be aware that there might be earthquakes coming and be prepared for it.
Well, speaking of that, this is, are we seeing an isolated event? Are there concerns that this quake could trigger activity on neighboring faults? After all, tsunami warnings in neighboring countries as well have been issued.
So we typically treat it not as an isolated event, but it's good to be aware and be in a more sort of alert condition where a stress field can change with a magnitude 7.8. So even I would treat it as an isolated event, but then we would local authorities and scientists usually keep it as a high alert.
Well, speaking of local authorities, we know that the Philippines, it does get hit by earthquakes, with the country mentioning they're sitting on the Pacific Ring of Fire. What more can be done to protect the people? After all, we're seeing images of, collapsed buildings in, schools and, shopping malls.
So at this time, it's a bit early for me to comment, but then I would like to emphasize what is important is that we are expecting aftershocks after such a big event, especially a magnitude 7.8. So people should be prepared for magnitude 6 aftershock, magnitude 5 aftershocks, and heed to local authorities' warnings.
All right, many thanks for that. I'm speaking to us, Lai Voon Hui, the Professor, Asia School of the Environment at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore.